This week on The Droids, The Mandalorian Chapter 3. We've got thoughts, so much to talk about as this story continues to unfold. This is all about Mando once again this week on The Droids. Hello and welcome in to The Droids You're Looking For, a Star Wars podcast, a brand new Star Wars podcast. This is the inaugural edition. I am Mike alongside Chris. Chris, we are
I know this is episode 3.
I was of
that. That's why I got discussion.
Right?
This was probably the night that I wasn't going to Star Wars for my first viewing, a little one, and like I think that after this movie,
I think I'd like to. I was expecting before I knew it, so I went out and saw it.
You have no idea what you're looking for. 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 You have no idea what you're looking for.
recap what they threw.
Welcome back to The Droids You're Looking For, a Star Wars podcast. Alongside Chris and Sam, I am Mike, and we are thrilled to be talking about yet another bit of new Star Wars storytelling. Guys, Episode 3, Chapter 3, I'm going to go back and forth on saying that all the time. I don't know that we have any funny jokes to do before this. We just have to talk about this chapter. There's a lot going on in each of these episodes, and I don't even know where to begin half the time. I just want to say this is so much fun.
You made me so nervous. We're gonna begin by reminding folks, if you're new to the pod, if you're catching up, this will be spoiler filled. This will be we're just diving right in. We are talking all about the episodes. Think of these as like recaps with our takes. So if you haven't watched, what are you doing? How'd you find us if you haven't watched? You're clearly searching for Star Wars in a podcatcher. But this will be spoiler-filled. We're talking Chapter 3 of the Mando. Go back and listen to the last 2 episodes we did where we recapped the other episodes, and then go back and listen to the other 100 or so before that because you love us.
It's a really nice table setter there, Sam. I respect it. I think that's a well-done way to set everybody up here. And, enjoy those past few edspods. Email us, droidspod@gmail.com. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, DroidsPod, the Droids Podcast on Facebook. And, of course, rate and review us on iTunes. Check out on YouTube, youtube.com/droidspod. You can check out the playthroughs that Ryan has been doing on Jedi Fallen Order. It is phenomenal work that Ryan has put out there. You're going to love what he's talking about as he goes through some of the early levels of Fallen Order and keeps on playing through for the rest of the game.
It's just as good as playing the game.
Ryan's also, like, for everybody listening, Ryan's also not with us, but he's the funny one. So that's
wow, I don't know how Chris feels about that.
I love you guys.
I'm the funny looking one.
But yeah, Ryan, I've watched a few. I haven't actually gotten to play the game just yet, but I've been watching some of his Let's Play videos. They're awesome. They're over on our YouTube channel, along with like all of our episodes. So if that's your preferred listening medium, you can find us there too. But Mike, you said it, man. It's so weird to live in a time where I'm getting new Star Wars every week.
I'm giddy. Yeah, the anticipation builds every week. It gives me something to look forward to in this dreary, otherwise life that we live. I feel like I should have done that in the Werner Herzog voice. I just don't have it down. I always feel like I just kind of toe the line of Werner Herzog and Schwarzenegger. This dreary... No, I can't even do it. Never mind.
I like that you go from one dreary real world to the dreary world of The Mandalorian. Yeah. This episode was particularly dark.
Every week, Mike wakes and walks through life sad and lonely in his desolate East Coast town. He has only his television show on Disney Plus, The Mandalorian, to look forward to.
Do you think
it is a violent, cold world, but still Mike prefers it.
To the warm glow of his newfound. See, it's Schwarzenegger. I can't.
You start going. You do.
You start out Herzog. You turn into Schwarzenegger. Do you think that Werner Herzog thinks that most of the stuff he's saying is about real things?
I have no idea. I mean, I have to assume with the way Disney's rolled out, so much of their content, like I'm certain, like the day the final episode drops, they're going to either also drop or announce, the sort of making of like the doc, because it's a huge deal that there's this is the first new Star Wars series, to come out live action, and there's going to be some juicy choice Herzog quotes. I'm sure
they're just banking them now.
There's a 90-minute doc about this show just about Baby Yoda or Yoda-let, whatever you want to call him. Just the creation, the eyes, the beauty, the adorable cuteness. It's all in there. Just simply that. And for those of you who are listening to this right away, rumors had been going around that finally there will be, and finally I say it's only been 3 weeks since they introduced, or 2 weeks since they introduced this show. Finally, there will be some Baby Yoda merchandise for you to get for all your loved ones this holiday season. Finally. Gosh,
I was saying that from the start.
What was happening that they didn't have it ready to go after episode or chapter 1 debuted?
Mm-hmm. Well, talking about toys, there's a lot to buy from this episode.
Hey, are we talking toys?
It made me think of the Scott Aukerman show. You talking toys to me?
Well, let's get into this episode.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to talk about with this episode is that, there's a lot that maybe you could have predicted about how this episode was going to play out, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And again, spoiler warning for everybody who's gotten to this point. You should have already stopped. I don't know why you're still listening if you haven't watched Chapter 3.
Oh, they stopped way before we even gave the spoiler warning.
I mean, we stayed mostly on track, Chris, this episode, so I think they're still hanging around. I think they probably might be here. I think the thing that stood out to me is I really expected that conflicted, will he give him away, will he not? No, he just goes directly back to get the Beskar, to get his bounty, and head into the Mando cave where he gets his armor forged again for the full armor. And I just thought there was going to be some moments of conflict. We get the conflict later, but I kind of, they're not wasting time in this series. He just goes directly there.
It's very efficient storytelling. I loved Baby Yoda trying to mess with stuff. And it shows that he's like a little kid, just like playing with buttons. And it's like, whatever, if it's Yoda or the Yoda species, it's like that's in their nature to be kind of mischievous, as we see like the Yoda in Empire.
Well, but you say that, Chris, and the great thing about it is it's not just a moment played for a story beat or a laugh. It is what comes back to get him to return. And
exactly.
Jumping to the end, but the fact that he takes the knob off of one of his, throttles for his ship is what reminds him of Baby Yoda. And I appreciate that something isn't wasted, that you see it early on and it ends up mattering.
Yeah, it's very efficient storytelling. To go back to the kind of the forging of the armor scene, we see a little bit more of the flashback now of his childhood, kind of how he was discovered, and something that I don't know if this is a connection or not, they kind of zoomed in on the Beskar blocks, and then they showed that the battle droid, are they made out of Beskar steel? Is that did part of the Empire take their armor and their gold and melt it down to make these super strong droids?
I hadn't thought of that before.
That would make that would be a very great, like, sort of what do you call it, like world building justification, like lore justification for it.
Exactly.
I wonder if it would be cool if the show got into it, but also it's entirely possible. Like, I love that theory, Chris, just because that feels like old school Star Wars, theorizing. Like, if they don't ever address it, which they don't have
it's
to,
fine,
but if they do, hey man, you got it on wax. As
there's
they
a name
say.
for those guys, the big ones.
I don't remember. Battle? They're battle droids, but I thought there is. I think you're right. Now in my head I keep on thinking heavy battle droid, but that's not their name.
I can't remember. They're in the Battlefront games. That's
but
all.
I would say that Yoda does.
We are fans. We're not members of the story group. We're like you listening out there. We're not going to get it all right. We're not going to get it every time.
Sam, I thought you were the keeper of the holocron.
What's the huh?
Well, that's right. You haven't really watched Rebels that much, have you?
I know what a holocron is. I've been watching Ryan's Let's Plays.
Oh, that's where you learned about it.
No, I knew. Come on.
Sam, I couldn't help but
come
think
on.
of you as they went back to the montage of him as a child once again in a similar scene, and like, oh boy, Sam's cringing his way through this one. I don't mind it. I'm fine with it.
So I actually want to jump in. So this was a tricky one. I really enjoyed this episode, but I had one particular huge problem with it. And it's actually the thing you guys, it sounded like you guys were saying you liked it in terms of the way the story is moving and progressing, like jumping right in, and it opens with Mando's, the chapter is called The Sin, and it opens with his sin, which is to deliver the bounty, this, baby Yoda who we've fallen in love with over 2 episodes, and his, also just like they really up the cuteness in the first 5 minutes. But actually, this was a thing that I felt, and I think I said it on the pod last week. If not, it was definitely in some of our nonstop text chains about Star Wars. But like something I really liked about the first 2 episodes was how much it surprised me that they were going the emotional route with the Mandalorian, where they were establishing that this figure who so easily could have been, an icy cold, badass for lack of a better movie word, was actually like very sensitive to this cute child and immediately protective, and it seems linked to his own his own being an orphan as a child, being orphaned, and it rang really, really false to me. The opening 5 minutes of this episode rang so false to me with what we'd seen in the first 2 episodes. Like, I did not buy that he would actually turn Baby Yoda over to the client, and it really disappointed me because I thought, like, it felt to me like the extremely easy and obvious storytelling route. It felt like it was a plot-driven choice as opposed to a character or story-driven choice. I mean, I guess, like, when I say story, I mean like what they'd set up. I don't know why I'm differentiating that from plot. It's probably the same thing. What I mean is like it rang hollow to me. I was very happy that within the that they dealt with that within the episode, but I did feel like this episode sort of treaded water, because to me it was like they set up in the first 2 episodes that he was going to be the protector of this innocent, child, and that he was going to be on the run. And that was perfectly and beautifully set up in the first 2 episodes, and then that's also where we end episode 3. So it was like nothing happened.
It is a little bit of treading water kind of thing, where it's kind of like we maybe could have done without a little bit of that conflict, or just got like right back to him maybe having to pick something up back at his home. And then having the confrontation. It
seems like they wanted him to get the Beskar so they could give him the new armor, which is dope. Like, I could also spend like the whole day talking about that. It looks so cool.
Well, I like that it's now you need to go and buy a new Mandalorian action figure. If you got the one originally, well, you got to update it.
Well, you're out of luck.
Let's go another $25.37, whatever much it costs to get that next Mandalorian action figure. Sam, I felt the same way at the end. I did think, I'm like, well, we're basically where we were just before this episode.
Yeah.
The 2 big differences were his new armor and what is now a conflicted or future back and forth between him and Greef Carga.
Yes.
The 2 of them being on opposite sides now, and what is likely going to be Carl Weathers chasing him throughout the galaxy to get back what is rightfully his, or the fact that he's now destroyed Greef Karga's network of bounty hunters. I think that's an interesting thing for us to follow in the episodes going forward. But overall, we didn't get a whole lot more. But that being said, I'm not too upset about that, because I still had a lot of fun in this episode and there was a lot of cool things that happened. But I understand where you're coming from the beginning. The reason the beginning didn't bother me in those first 5 minutes is I still feel like we are learning a lot about who the Mandalorian is, and I don't know that I for sure got the sense that he was doing the right thing by saving Baby Yoda in the last 2 episodes, or if he was doing all of that so that he could get his bounty. And I think now with this episode, they've made it clear that he got his bounty and then realized he had a heart and a consciousness and he needed to go back and save Baby Yoda. And so now that's fully established. I think we could have gotten away with feeling like that was fully established already in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I don't mind this episode doing a little bit more of that, especially when we got some of the kind of jaw-dropping moments that we did.
Well, I do want to jump in because I mean, you said it perfectly, Mike. I guess I'm just on the other side of that, where I actually felt it was really strongly established in the first 2 episodes, and that's why I was disappointed by this, what felt like sort of incongruous to my reading of those first 2 episodes. But that could be me.
I felt they hinted at it. I mean, him saving him at the end of the first episode and then putting out his finger. It's like, okay, clearly he has some emotional attachment here.
Well, it could also be or some kind of connection to the Force itself.
Yeah.
I guess I'm thinking of like the way I'm also thinking in some ways like I don't know if it's like a meta. I don't know. I just think that we talked about it a lot. In terms of like the amount of emotion they're getting through the mask.
Yeah,
and the way Rick Famuyiwa shot the last episode, I felt like it was very clear that this was a partnership that was forming, and it kind of that like episode 2 proved to me like the viability of doing a season where the Mandalorian has a baby in tow.
Do you think though? Do you think it was necessary though to do that? Well, so first off, I guess there's like family pressures that he has from the rest of the Mando gang. That is like he has this kind of duty that's above himself to carry out the obtaining of this Beskar and kind of rewriting his tribe. But do you think that it's also functional, though, that we get a little bit of the bad guys' intentions, whether we need that or not? Like, they're clearly wanting to take Yoda and, like, pull some kind of essence out of him. Maybe it comes back to midichlorians. They're trying to figure out the Force. Maybe it's for cloning.
Where did you get that, Chris? I didn't get that sense very much at all.
They were definitely trying to extract something.
Yeah.
They were like, "Did you get it?"
Yeah, they had him in that. Yeah, they had him in that little chamber, and they were doing something to him.
I guess I took the science.
It was the audio. No, it was the audio. It was the audio the Mando listened to.
Yeah.
While he was like looking through the scope, which was clearly between the client and that scientist, and it was like there was some line in there about like extracting something. Did you get what we need?
Did you extract the midichlorians from him?
You like also are going Schwarzenegger.
That's going Schwarzenegger.
Did you get the carrot with the diet? Into the midichlorians.
But yeah. So anyway,
sorry,
I felt it was established. It kind of threw me off at the top of chapter 3, and it really did. It soured me a bit for the episode. I really want to be clear. I enjoyed this. I'm not trying to like bash it, but like to me, episode 2 was real high watermark. Mm-hmm. Like it was so good. Episode 3 was like pretty good, I thought. The one thing I was planning, I was like making mental notes as I watched because I knew we were going to record right after. And one of the things I was going to bring up was when Mando, so he's turned over Baby Yoda, he has a change of heart before leaving, and he decides to go back, and he leads this like one-man raid where he like stealth infiltrates the client's headquarters to like steal back and rescue Baby Yoda. And when he's like scouting the place and like walking around the perimeter, he at one point like he kind of like looks up, like he's like checking the rooftops, and I was about to say like, oh man, I was going to bring up, I was like, clearly they made a production decision not to give him the Mandalorian jetpacks because that would be such a pain to do on TV or something.
Yeah.
And then I just finished digesting my hat because I had to eat it after what
20
what
of
I
them
saw
showed
later.
up.
Yeah, like 20 flying Mandos.
That's a Beskar steel hat too, so that's hard.
Goes down.
It's going to take a while to process.
I do want to say about this episode, one of the things that didn't sit well with me is I'm like, oh man, sometimes you don't like being old enough to have paid close attention to the workings of creating a show or a film, because guys, doing the exact same beats of chapter 1. He goes to the client, he goes to Greef Carga, he goes to get his armor molded, and they're literally the same. It's like, I get it, you were efficient in the way you shot this and saved some money, but
we'll do episodes 2, 3, and 4 with scenes. Yeah, there's kind of a motif in every episode.
But it was surprising how it was exactly the same.
Yeah,
I mean, it was beat for beat. It was pretty beat for beat. Even like the sort of the idea of like, oh, it's a Western shootout that plays on other Westerns. He jumps in the back of a wagon. And
Well, actually, I didn't.
It was very like 310 to Yuma.
There was one very disturbing shot before when he's kind of doing the heist in the hideout. He's using his fire, and then it kind of like cuts to Yoda's face, like watching him melt that stormtrooper. I was like,
and then the sound design immediately after when that guy falls, you just hear like meat sizzling.
It was kind of like it was just like very dark to cut to Yoda's face to have him going like, ooh.
Well, okay, so we see that so after turning over Yoda, he gets new armor, he gets a new cuirass formed out of Beskar. And he turns down a signet, which was to be like somehow his defeat of the
Mudhorn.
Rhino. What, Mudhorn?
Yeah, I think that's what it was called.
He denies that signet because he had help, and instead gets the whistling bird,
which isn't. It's not a signet though.
It's not a signet. The whistling bird is a weapon. And again, this is all like. Just like in chapter 1, this was like the leveling up of your character, the building armor. It's like the gamification of the show in a way that I really like. It scratches a very real itch for me of like, oh, I want to see this character, like build him out. I want this to be a video game. Which we then see used in the raid. I thought the raid was actually, I think that was my favorite part of the episode, even more than some of the reveals. I guess maybe I'm a sucker for the interactions with Baby Yoda, but like this raid is pretty cool. He breaks in. We get a lot of him, like basically we get to see him using his tools again, and you can tell that like these writers and directors are having a lot of fun each episode, being like, okay, I get to play in the toy box of all of the Mando's weapons, like because every episode he's using multiple ones. His grappling gun, the flamethrower, his pistol, the knife, his what is it? Not vaporizer. Is it vaporizer?
Well,
his big gun.
disintegration gun, disintegrator.
His disintegrator, and then
when he used the wire to pull the stormtrooper to him and then stabbed him, that was kind of like, ooh, this is PG. Is this really
right?
PG?
It was a very violent episode.
I thought the sizzling skin of that stormtrooper was the thing that got me. I was like, whoa.
And the Jon Favreau loves that little rocket effect when there's like a bunch of little rockets that like zip around.
There was a lot of Iron Man imagery.
Yeah, there's a very similar effect in the first Iron Man movie, but he loves that little whistling rockets that just hone in and boink.
He's got He's got the jetpack stuff. He's got the forging, and he's got the like little mini zippy rockets.
Yeah.
What else has he got? What other bag of tricks are we going to see here in the next few episodes?
He did showcase a lot of weapons in this episode.
But Sam, I understand what you were saying about how, again, the back half plays off of other Westerns and maybe even 310 to Yuma, but I look at the first half of repeating exactly what you did in Chapter 1. That's not interesting to me, because we didn't need, if you're going to do a flashback at a different setting. Like something else should trigger his flashback rather than the same thing that triggered his flashback in Chapter 1. I don't mind that we continue to get the homages, because we're going to have many more of those Western homages as it goes on. I just don't want to see the seams of making this show and seeing how they save money.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I didn't mean to suggest, like, I'm with you, Mike. I mean, I think like the same beats were, it was a bummer, and that last sort of, that last shootout, the one that I'm now staking a claim. It's the 310 to Yuma scene of this movie, which who knows? I don't know what their influence was. I don't know if they've ever seen that movie. I'm sure they have.
Sure.
But that scene wasn't my favorite. I think the big things that I liked in this episode, personally, were I liked the heist scene, the stealth, murder of a bunch of stormtroopers stealing back Baby Yoda, and I did like the way the armor forging scene and the scene with the Mandos at the end gave us context for Mandalorian culture as it is now.
Yep.
Like, first of all, we learned that. I mean, I thought it was a very interesting interaction that he had with heavy Mando. I don't mean like his weight, but I mean like he had like heavier armor.
Yeah.
He
What are
like
you
later
trying to
showed up
say,
with like
Sam?
Wait
a
a second.
Gatling gun. I'm talking like a huge fat guy, fat Mando. No, I'm talking about like the heavy, like the heavy armored Mando. Who
Is he holding the chain gun later?
Yes, that was him. But it was like, he was angered by like the return of the Beskar that had been forged and stamped. They said it was forged by the Empire, which was interesting.
I think they meant that they probably turned it into those pieces of credits or Imperial credits that they did.
Maybe he meant that they like had raided and took over the forge,
Yeah, that could
like
be.
from the Mandos or something. But he referred to it, and it was like, we sort of from chapter 1 we took the idea that like, oh, the Mandalorian's quest is bringing back pieces of his culture, getting this metal back from the wrongful holders of it. And now we learned like there's a new shade of nuance to that, in that like some Mandalorians actually resent it at all, and they are seeing that it's like, you're working with the enemy in order to get this back.
There was an interesting line within that where it made me almost think literally, where he's like, you shared table with the Empire, and then it made me think of like Boba Fett sitting at the table.
No, I think completely. It's this idea of like, how do you go about getting back this piece of the culture? Do you have to like work? Do you have to break bread with these people? And it's, we've seen more, like we've seen how the Mandalorian operates, but we also learned that like, so they are completely in hiding. They only go out one at a time.
Mm-hmm. They never take their helmets off.
We learned that they never take their helmets off, presumably as a way of, preserving their identity and also presenting as kind of like a monolith, or a singular entity. There's like a point of pride. We learned about like,
real quickly,
the nobility of battle, like to not die, and then we see that they are also they're also oh man, what's the like moving? What people who are on the move?
Refugees.
Yeah, but
There's a word. There's like an anthropologic word. For
yeah, I'm
nomads?
talking about like they're nomadic.
nomadic.
Jeez,
Wow,
man,
they're woolly mammoths.
Listen, like I said, we're fans, not experts. Nobody said I was going to have all the words.
No one said that you went to.
What were you trying
class.
to? You had a comment, Mike.
Well,
I just wanted to get through those sort of things that we learned.
When you talk about the helmet, that's the show. I feel like doubling down that we're going to either have a monumental moment where his helmet is removed, or we're never going to have his helmet removed.
Well, I think that's the kind of the character turning point also, is like, now that we know this information and like kind of his ties to his Mandalorian roots, like when does he, so both sides are kind of pulling him with this kind of moral dilemma where they're like, you got to just do what you got to do to get us this Beskar back and restore our people, and then the Empire's kind of like, yeah, we'll give you money for doing our dirty deeds. So I think at a point he's going to have to make the decision if he's his own person and not necessarily doing it for the Mandalorians or the Empire.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that the
and
moment
I think that's when the helmet comes off, though. I think that's when he's like, I am my own person.
I think the moment at the end of this episode, though, just reinforced his Mandalorian connections, because them coming to save him and being there to help him in his moment of need, when they both say this is the way at the end of that, I think he will continue to have, continue to preach the Mandalorian way of life and continue to do more in that way. I don't know. I think he might just have to be alone because he can't have that kind of support.
Well, I was going to say they might also have been them saying, "Well, you can't come back here now." So now,
I didn't think so. I think they said they had to move and they called it something different. But the Mando cave, they said they'd have to move it, and he said he's like, "But you'll have to move it." And he says, "This is the way." It wasn't this is the way like you ruin things for us. It was this is the way we're gonna we'll modify. It'll be all right.
Well, I took it as they have to move the cave on that planet, and then he's no longer welcome there.
Oh, I didn't get that sense at all.
I think I interpreted it like I see that interpretation for sure, Crit. Like I see that reading, but I'm with Mike. Like I read it as like this tacit acknowledgement of like these two Mandos who had sort of butted heads earlier were both acknowledging like we both follow the code. I'm kind of curious, like I think it's 50-50. I think it's a coin toss of whether or not we do get the helmet removed. I tend to think we will, but they might do it in a clever way that it's like only to Baby Yoda or something,
But was Mama Mando fighting with them?
No, and I like he called her Mama Mando.
So
Mama Mando.
You know what, Chris? There are females in this world who don't have to be mothers to have importance in this life.
The leader. This is true. This is the head Mando. She didn't fight with him. That's kind of why I got that inclination. That it was like the kids were kind of like, "All right, you go."
Oh, I think she's strictly like a blacksmith. I don't think that she
Mike
does a whole lot more.
Women can be more than blacksmiths.
Well, I think there is something interesting though that in my reading, I do think that she is playing the role of like clan blacksmith, but I also think that it's an interesting read on their culture that like the blacksmiths of the culture are actually authorities or like higher. Sort of like higher power, higher authorities,
because
like
they
commanders.
They know how to make like the artifacts and the weapons and like the sacred war relics.
Exactly. So, I don't know. I kind of am reading both that she is kind of the leader, but also that she is it's not a leader in the traditional sense. I mean, she's not like
I just felt like
clan.
She's probably tied most closely to the actual Mandalorian roots, whereas the rest are kind of just like figuring it out alongside of them, so they might have similar inclinations.
She's like the tribe elder.
Yes.
And as the elder, she also has skills that pass down the history and religion and priorities of Mandalore.
Right. I mean, it is a running theme in Star Wars, no matter what the story is that kind of finding your own identity throughout, and like the circumstance that helps you find that identity.
That's true. It's really interesting, Chris, because I wonder where we are going to go. I feel like they're building so much into the show's called The Mandalorian, and what Mandalorians value and what they're all about, that I would be surprised if he decided, I'm on my own, I'm kind of going to be like Boba Fett now. I just wear the armor. I don't have any real ties to it. I would be surprised if it went that way, but it's going to be really interesting to see how he deals with that as his identity develops.
For sure.
But the good thing is, we didn't get the sense that the Mandalorians wanted him to not protect Baby Yoda. That was what we got from the end of the episode, is that they're in support of what he was doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. They trust and approve of his decision, and we really know that. I mean, first of all, by their showing up in defense of him, but then we also have it confirmed by that just stunning and beautiful shot, that Iron Man shot at the end.
Totally.
I thought that was so silly. Oh my God. I I was like, this is goofy. He gives him a salute.
The salute was what was a little weird to me.
Where have we ever that does not feel like it is of that world or culture. It's like, why is he doing a straight up like American military salute?
It was just an outtake from the Avengers movie. And
I could have really done without that last beat where it was like we already had it. We had them both saying, it's the way, like, which was really, really nice. And so it was like I felt like we already got the like bro nod between them. And then they added like one more like bro nod where it was like a rocket pack. It did grant us the line of like, gotta get me one of those sort of things, which was like, okay.
Well, and it was fun to see the way that they did the CGI for the jetpacks for the Mandalorians in the scene was great, but I think that he was elevated even higher. It was fun to see that individual shot, which was probably our longest look at someone flying because everything else was kind of quick cuts of them during the battle. So that was, I did like that, but yeah, the salute was just kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's one of those where I kind of just accept it because there are moments where it's like, well, sometimes kids are going to love that, and this is a show for kids.
It's one of those moments when you discover that R2-D2 has a rocket underneath him.
The whole time.
You're like, oh, the Mandalorians could fly that much. I thought maybe just how Boba Fett used it.
Yeah, it seemed like
also there's supposed to be a rocket in that bad boy.
Yeah, what we saw, what we see in Return of the Jedi, obviously it's kind of played for laughs that it gets misfired and he goes into the pit. But I always kind of read that rocket pack, the jet pack, as a little bit more of I guess we see it. I guess we also see it in episode 2. But I always thought of it as kind of a last ditch, it's an escape thing. It's hey, if you gotta blast out of someone's range real quick, it's a great way to do that. It didn't ever strike me as something that was they're also Iron Man and Superman. They can fly. It's
the Clone Wars does a lot of that, though.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm not. I thought I'd seen an episode or two of Mandalore, but look, I don't know, man. I can't keep it all straight.
Sam, you better get ready for it, though. Rise of Skywalker, we've seen that stuff in the trailer where it looks like the Stormtroopers have adopted the technology of the Mandalorians when they're flying. Yeah. So
that's dope.
Be prepared for more.
A
Can't
Mandalorian
wait.
army.
Well, one other thing that we haven't talked about in this episode is how the Beskar is delivered to the Mandalorian in the infamous ice cream maker that we saw in Cloud City in The Empire Strikes Back. And the keeper of the ice cream maker, I don't remember the character's name. I'm sure it was just one of those things you could find on a trading card. But the action figure, and I give a tip of my cat, as we do here on the Droids, to Mark, a friend of mine who is all about Star Wars as well, who pointed out that action figure has a blaster. And now we know why he had a blaster, because the ice cream maker is full of Beskar. That's what you do. You have to protect your entire ice cream maker full of Beskar.
I thought it was really... I thought it, I don't know. I thought it looked really cool. I didn't realize this was a prop we'd seen before.
Oh, yeah. There's a big following for the ice cream maker.
His name is Wilro Hood.
There you go. Wilro.
Okay, well, I'll have to dig into this later. I don't know. Is it featured prominently in the
no,
it's in the back.
trilogy?
It's
Not
just
really.
You see him running and everybody's trying to escape Cloud City, and there's one guy who's taking his ice cream maker.
I like to think it was still full of, even though in the reality of the movie it was not meant for ice cream, I like to think that man kept ice cream inside of it.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Well, Jon Favreau teased that they were going to have it in the episode on his Instagram.
That's hilarious.
Did anybody else also think in the beginning of the episode when he radio or when he video chats with
video chat
with Carl Weathers
Yeah.
when he FaceTimes Carl Weathers, the performance, the line reading that Carl Weathers gives cracks me up.
It was
he's like ho ho Mando.
It felt like
good. It's
it
he's
felt
doing
like I
an
was at-
animated performance.
Yeah, it felt like I was at the theme park and that got played on loop 100 times.
God love him. I'm not trying to make fun of him, but it was big. It was like a broad reading of that line.
I noticed that too. I was kind of like, all right. It was like a little video gamey. This whole show is very video gamey.
It's super gamey. I'm down. I'm here for it.
Well, they've changed Greef Carga kind of even when he sees him in the cantina again. He's like, Mando! And it feels like Mando is just his new thing. And that's the way we're like, all right, well, that's not what we got early on.
Well, he's clearly doing he's kind of performing for the other bounty hunters. And he's clearly trying to align himself with this sort of I don't know what you call it, a prize fighter, the best in class. And
a prize fighter, maybe somebody who's coming up from the ranks. Maybe he's a little bit of Rocky. Maybe he's got to train him. Maybe because he's Apollo Creed.
It did I don't know. It made me curious for what Greef's real motives are here. And certainly with the end of the episode, we see they come face to face. The Mando, cleverly, narrowly escapes, and he does shoot Greef in the, at the episode end. Greef's not dead. He survives. Whether that was intentional, an intentionally wide shot, or whether
I liked
it was
the music at that cue. It was kind of like almost silly.
All the music was so good. I felt like Ludwig Göransson has maybe 18 themes in this show so far, and all of them are amazing.
Yep. I'm just waiting for that alligator to bite off his hand, Carl Weathers' hand.
Let's get them all in. You can have a Stu lose his hand, fight Rocky. What else we got, Carl?
We got it all. No, but yeah, you're right. The musical, they're really doing a very good job of like defining the motifs of every character.
I think the last thing I want to say about Greef Carga in this chapter of the series is, "I'm your only hope, Mando."
Yeah,
that's a little on the nose, but hey,
woof.
Every line of dialogue from the original trilogy at one point will be said in the 7 series on Disney Plus.
They do that a lot in Clone Wars, Rebels, and Resistance. They give you basically either situations or actual direct lines that are just pulled from the movies, and I think that's just like a tactic to get you that connection, and it's an homage and people in the know, and it's kind of fun sometimes, but sometimes it's a little on the nose.
I liked it. I just liked it. It also felt like, because of the way that Carl Weathers did that reading, at first it wasn't like in any way perfectly mimicking what was done with Princess Leia, so it was just using the line of dialogue, and it made sense in the scene. It didn't feel forced.
I had one other thought. I agree. I want to jump in just while it sounds like we're getting close to the end, but the one thing we should really address. So this is the first piece of Star Wars live action that we've seen directed by a woman. Deborah Chow directed this episode, and Deborah Chow is going to be directing for the Obi-Wan series, or maybe showrunning the Obi-Wan series. So, this is the interesting moment where it's kind of the first look at, how she is approaching the culture, the story, the world, the galaxy of Star Wars. And so I think that's cool. I don't know. I'm down. I said it at the top. So far, out of the first 3 chapters, I really do think Famuyiwa's episode was like truly like a notch above. Like I think chapter 2 was phenomenal. But I think this was a really, really like fun, well designed episode. It had a few moments I really liked. I liked the like sort of myth building and lore that she got across through this chapter. So I don't know. Any thoughts on any things you can pick apart from that?
If this is the bar set, I'm very excited to see what she'll do with the Obi-Wan series. I mean, I think she got the essence, I think, of these series, which is like a lone character and just plowing through a world. Like I think she nailed it.
Well, I think it's a very well-directed episode. The action sequences and just the set pieces throughout are pretty beautiful. I think they're really they're coherent. You know where everything is. There's beats that come up. Like, I felt that I would have likely gotten up and cheered if I was 10 or 11 when the Mandalorians came to save him. And I felt that timing was really well done. And it really was well established. I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about the direction, and part of that is because it was so good.
I would say kind of ditto. I wasn't as conscious of the direction. I will say that, like, again, with chapter 2, I was conscious of the direction, and I would not describe that as like being a fault of the direction. Like, I was conscious of how much I was like mesmerized by all that Famuyiwa was setting up with every scene, and I was like very aware of like what he was playing into with each shot and each like sequence. But I agree that this was really well done. The Mandalorian's backup arriving was definitely a triumphant moment. And as I said, I really did enjoy that that sort of stealth sequence. I mean, that to me, that whole like raid sequence where he breaks out Baby Yoda, to me, that was what I want from the Cassian Andor series. That was like, oh, this gives me a preview of what that could be. Which again, I know that Deborah Chow is not necessarily involved in that series, but again, this is all we're sort of spinning out from the episode, going into like, this is proof of concept for me for some of these other things they have in the pipeline.
One other thing to talk about before we wrap this up, I do think it's been called out on social. I think it's a pretty warranted criticism. This episode gives a little bit more, but there has only been one female character in the first 3 episodes of this series. The dialogue for that character was limited in episode 1, and here we have the elder of the Mandalorian. She has a bigger role to play, but it does feel limiting in terms of representing female characters. I'm a bit surprised by that. We know Gina Carano is on the horizon, so that will probably change.
And also rumored to get her own spin-off series. So
really? I had not heard that rumor. Breaking news here on the Droids.
Breaking news here on the pod, yeah.
Wow.
Where is this from? Is this from Cosmic Book News?
I hope it's not from Cosmic Book News.
Or is this a hot and fresh straight off the top of the dome?
No. Yeah, I will look it up.
No, I believe you, Chris. I'm giving you a hard time.
The one thing that I would say, and I don't want to sound like I'm totally defending not having female characters, but when you're doing a series about a loner and you choose that loner as a male character, then likely you're not going to have a lot of other characters in it. But one thing that it could also be the case, maybe Baby Yoda is a female instead of a male. I do think it's a very warranted criticism that they have not had more. Why couldn't Nick Nolte's character have maybe been a female character? We could have seen a little bit more in even some of the cantina scenes, somebody who was maybe Greef Carga. Again, I think that there were opportunities there that they didn't take advantage of.
No, I think at best, the best reading of this is it's the kind of sort of oversight and ignorance that the film industry has had for like decades upon decades, and you have like, male showrunners creating a show and not being really aware or not caring that, all their characters are men and male focused for the first 3 episodes of an 8-episode series. That's like the best reading. I think, the worst reading is that, like, and I'm a little fearful of this, is that, like, there's an attempt to justify it, or there's an attempt to say, like, yeah, that's just how it's going to be. We're aware of it and we don't care. And that's kind of worse. What we've seen from Star Wars since the Disney acquisition has been, in general, at least on camera, much more progressive, much more inclusive and considerate of like who is going on screen, who people are seeing as their heroes. And so it does feel like, it's hard for me to imagine that it never came up, that nobody ever said like, hey, how about we have the bartender be a woman? How about we have some of the other bounty hunters be women? How about we have one of the droids be voiced by a woman? How about we have Greef be a woman?
Yeah.
How about we have the client be a woman? The scientist be a woman? I mean, it's like,
it's
overwhelming that they haven't done it. And so at this point, it feels like it's probably beyond sort of thoughtlessness or carelessness. It feels like it was sort of a choice, or again, just like a willful and decided ignorance of that. And that's like it. I'm glad people are speaking up. I hope that some of the folks who are making the show, which has been really, really good so far, I hope they're hearing it. I hope they're taking it to heart, and I hope that we see, not that it'll change for the rest of the season 1 of Mando, but hopefully it can influence some of what is coming.
And they're already in the process of making season 2, so I'm sure they are hearing. I think there was even an interview with Jon Favreau talking about how they appreciate the immediacy of the response, so that they can look at that, think about where they want to go forward by seeing how people are reacting versus a film just being in the can and moving on from there. One thing I want to talk about before we wrap this up is one of my other favorite moments in this, and it just felt like, again, very classic Western, was when every single fob turned back on for all the other bounty hunters, and the Mandalorian was in for it, knowing he was going to have to face against basically every bounty hunter in the parsec or whatever it would be. Because I thought that was just a really great moment. It made me, despite knowing that our hero is going to make it and likely get away with Baby Yoda, I still felt dread. I still felt like, oh boy, how's he going to get out of this one? I don't know if he can make it. And it was fun to feel that way.
Well, and they did set it up. We sort of, I felt like it was a great moment, and it was really well set up because, you know, one of the things that the Mandalorian is upset about in the episode is how many fobs did you give out? And the client sort of brushes it off and said we needed to ensure we got what we were after. But then Greef is like, everybody had one. And he's kind of proud of it, and he's trying to use it to kind of pump the Mandalorian up that everybody has one. And so it's this great, like, it's laying this great track where it's like, once you see one of them kick back on, you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
Everybody has one. It was very John Wick 2.
It was.
You know, where I was like, oh, okay. There's a society. Apparently, the Star Wars society exists where everyone is a bounty hunter.
That's hilarious. It's also like a super efficient way, instead of like an announcement or like everyone getting a text on their phone. Like, it's so efficient to tell the world that he's bad, like, or that he's on the lam. Yeah.
What is the Star Wars version of the Continental? I think we've seen it in this cantina.
Well, it's the cantina.
Ooh,
yeah.
I like that.
It's that ship and Solo.
Any other favorite moments that we haven't talked about already? I feel like we've talked about the majority of the episode. This one coming in at about 32 minutes. It was about 37 on the credits, but 32 overall on the content.
I do have one that it was hinted at, but we didn't actually hit the favorite moment of it, which was, for me, the payoff of Baby Yoda's playfulness with the accelerator stick.
I said that.
No. You did say that, but the payoff of it was that at the end he removes it and hands it to him.
Oh yeah.
Well, which I thought was like such a delightful moment to like. I don't mean maybe you were including all of it, but I loved the idea that after rescuing Baby Yoda, he sits him down and Baby Yoda is kind of playfully like reaching. And the Mandalorian himself removes the head of the joystick and hands it to him, you know?
You got to be careful. That's a choking hazard for little Yodas.
Honestly, yeah. If you're watching this, young parents, don't try to be the Mandalorian. Yeah. Really, I can't stress that enough.
You nailed it, though. It is a payoff for something that seemed very innocuous at the beginning. It was an emotional motivation, and then it turned into being an actual physical, like, totem of the Mandalorian cares about little baby Yoda, and I feel like the Force is calling to the Mandalorian.
Oh boy,
guys! I gotta say,
a Force-sensitive Mando, that'd be something I wouldn't want to mess with, you know.
Mm-hmm.
As the resident podfather here, I think there's a little bit more than just caring. There's a little bit of like, fine, just take it. If you're gonna keep on reaching for it, just take it. You just give in.
There's also a paternal kind of aggravation there, which is funny. It's like, you're going to take it no matter what. That's funny. Like, you're just going to complain until you get this thing. So here you go.
Here you go. Make my life a little bit easier. The one other thing, and Chris, I don't know if you had anything else. I loved when he destroyed the door droid. When he just waited, knocked, and then ripped it out. That was such a great moment.
That's the thing you always want to do with those things.
Yeah, I know. They're so annoying. What are you doing?
Didn't somebody also, one of the other bounty hunters at the bar uses like the sort of like curse term we've heard?
Oh, yeah.
They like echuta, or whatever.
Isn't that what, like, did we hear that in Force Awakens?
Did we?
I thought it was from like original like Star Wars or something, or maybe look, clearly we don't remember, but what I liked about it was that it's such a recognizable like sort of soundbite, and they brought it back, and that's just I mean, that's the layers they're going to with the show. But one of them like curses him out for being the winner of the bounty. So that was I thought that was the kind of sort of subtle nod or like a reference that I like, where it fits within the context of the show. It was great.
Chris, did you have any others?
No.
The whole thing. All right.
To be fair, we've covered, we've doubled the length of the episode.
We went over everything. Oh, I was gonna say I do like, the more I see his ship, the more I like it.
Me too.
The kind of Mickey Mouse looking.
Yep, the Mickey ship. Just in case,
but
you forgot,
I do
Disney
love
property.
it. I love its like shiny chrome nature, and I think it's like such a good like. It looks like it came from the prequel times.
Yeah,
when it was like nice and shiny, and then it weathered through the used universe, and now it's kind of where it is, which I like.
Do you think if it was all made out of Beskar, it would never be able to take off because it was just too heavy?
That would be one heavy ship. I think the planet would start sinking down.
My last question to the two of you: what is your first purchase of Baby Yoda merchandise, which is coming out this weekend?
I got to look at my options.
Well, I mean, they're not. No one knows what the options are yet, which is why.
So it's a theoretical.
Yes, but which is why I'm going to buy the Baby Yoda bassinet, because I assume they've already mastered the technology to make a floating following Baby Yoda bassinet.
That's completely necessary.
That's what I want.
Unless Baby Yoda's just doing that.
Well, so I was wondering that myself as to whether or not he was using the Force for that, but then the Mandalorian has used controls to move him around.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get the screw off top of the the gear shift. I'm just gonna get that. I'm gonna set it down somewhere on a desk.
Sam, you say that, and I actually really believe that'll be on sale on Galaxy's Edge in about 6 months.
Great, I'll get it.
You know how Ryan Johnson had the famous lobster sweater cardigan?
Yep.
I want a Baby Yoda cardigan.
Just with Baby Yoda on the back.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be I could see you wearing that, Chris. That'd be very on brand for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow. Well, we will update you in our next podcast what you can buy of Baby Yoda, and we'll talk more.
That's right.
We'll get another podcast in the next few days, I think, actually by middle next week at least. We will have another episode talking about Fallen Order with Ryan, who will be back, and then, of course, Chapter 4.
Yep.
There's
and
so
then also
much.
The Kathleen Kennedy just gave a really nice interview in Rolling Stone magazine.
She did, and I think there's also a J.J. Abrams interview in Rolling Stone magazine. We talk a little bit more about that. I think some other publications, The Hollywood Reporter, took a quote from Kathleen Kennedy and misconstrued it, and of course,
this is just the tip of the cat of Star Wars content for this next 2 months. This is like a tenth of everything that's happening.
We started out saying
tip of the cat.
I know. I was thinking of tip of the iceberg, but
we started out.
It's multifaceted.
Started out this pod talking about how much fun it is to have all of this Star Wars, and it just continues to be, and we'll have so much more. This has been the Droids You're Looking For, a Star Wars podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, DroidsPod, the Droids Podcast on Facebook, and of course, check out those playthroughs for Fallen Order, youtube.com/DroidsPod, and we will be back with another edition of the Droids You're Looking For, a Star Wars podcast.
What they throw? Annie?
Boring conversation anyway.
I know you. You're the alligator that took Chubb's hand. Give it back.
I think that Blurg could take his hand.
I am spoken.
This is the way.
Millennial Falcon. You boys want to go to the cantina?
You guys want to go to Taco Bell Cantina?
You guys want to go to the Taco Bell Cantina? Why is that not a crossover?
Oh, wow. That's a really good point. Ooh, if any of us start working for Taco Bell marketing,
yeah, exactly.
You know what's happening.
Well, the amount of money I spend there, they owe me.